I'm Haley Angerett, and this is my research analysis for Soc 100. The article I analyzed was Childhood, Family, Ethnicity, and Drug Use Over the Life Course by Lisa Cubbins and Daniel Keplinger. This article appeared in the Journal of Marriage and Family in March 2007. The researchers conducted this survey to determine if childhood, family, and religious affiliations cause ethnic differences in marijuana and cocaine use. The independent variable of this particular experiment is the childhood, family, and religious affiliations, and the dependent variable is the marijuana and cocaine use. The researchers suspect that people who do not have a good family life and who do not attend church are more likely to use marijuana and cocaine. The researchers in this experiment decided that the best way to test their hypothesis was to use survey technique. A survey includes asking people multiple questions and recording their responses at a later time. The respondents of this particular survey were part of the National Longitudinal Survey of Youth. There were 8,294 people surveyed, ages ranging from 14 to 21 and from all over the world, excluding Native Americans and Asian Americans. Results of the survey showed that whites are more likely overall to use marijuana and cocaine. It also showed that Catholics are the most likely to use drugs, and people who have no religious affiliations are least likely to use drugs. The study also showed that people with parents that have never been divorced are least likely to use drugs, and if a person with an alcoholic father, they will be more likely to use drugs. Because values can lead to unintended distortions in how we interpret our research, sociologists stress the need for replication, repeating a study in order to compare the new results with the original findings. This study was not repeated, and this may cause some bias in the findings and completely throw off the results. However, the textbook also says that people in the research should be informed of the research being done. This present study does this very well. All participants were aware that they were part of a survey and part of research. In this study, exogenous factors will be examined because it looks at how your family and where you grew up affects your probability of drug use. One example in this study that a sociologist might find interesting is that children who grew up in split homes are more likely to use drugs. They might argue that children who grew up in split homes children who live in one home have a more united front and will be less likely to use drugs because they have more structure in their lives. Psychologists look at endogenous factors. They do not talk about these factors in the experiment, but we can assume that a child who puts a lot of pressure on themselves or has low self-esteem might turn to drug use to cope with their problems. A psychologist would argue that because certain expectations causes a lot of stress, especially in young teenagers who do not know how to handle it. This is relevant to this particular study because the authors do not take into consideration one's mental state and their family background when choosing to use drugs. However, social class also plays an important role in determining if a person chooses to use drugs. For example, members of lower social class are more likely to get a divorce or have single-parent homes, which are the leading causes of drug use. Even though it is not discussed in this particular study, social class does play an important role. To better understand the relationship between family life and drug use, I looked up another article related to this topic. I found Who Influences Adolescent Drug Use the Most, Parents or Peers, by Tess McCallum. It appeared in the spring 1994 edition of Youth Studies of Australia. In this study, the researcher found similar results as the previous study in that family influences are the leading cause in adolescent drug use, most importantly, having a relationship with your parents. They found that the closer you are with the parents, the less likely you will be to abuse drugs. They also found, like the previous study, that divorce will change the dynamics of the family and potentially damage relationships, causing more drug abuse.